At this point, uploading should be taking place inside of your WordPress environment to Cloudinary because, as we pointed at the end of the lesson, with our recommended settings, syncing is already happening. This means content that is inside of your WordPress media library, images, videos, as well as places where you have images and videos that may not necessarily be the media library of WordPress, such as themes and plugins, that is now being synced into Cloudinary. And that also means that you're going to start to be able to use all the wonderful features of optimization and aesthetics and so much more that Cloudinary can provide. But let's get into some of the nitty-gritty when it comes to those specific pieces. And the first part is specifically about that auto-syncing situation. Now, it is to say, this is the default, that when you have something that is inside your WordPress media library, we are going to sync with your Cloudinary product environment and make sure that it is also there. And when you deliver it with putting it on a post or a page from your WordPress site, it will be delivered from Cloudinary for all of the things that we mentioned just a little earlier: optimization, aesthetics, the responsive images aspect, lazy loading, and more. You can always manipulate all of those settings though. So what that means is, as you can see, this is going to be tied to your plugin and specifically into the general settings section. So let's go take a look at that. When we go on over to your plugin, you'd see that if I go to the general settings section, this is where a lot of those details are going to be. This is where I can state if I want to have it do an auto sync, and then I can also have it do a manual sync. If I set this to manual, that means that I need to hit a button or essentially hit some type of trigger that is going to say, sync the content that's in the media library now with Cloudinary. So it totally depends on what your preferences happen to be, but it does mean that regardless of whether it's automatically happening or manually happening, this is where the connection is taking place between the two systems. It is also to state that we have a place that you can specify a Cloudinary folder path. So if you want to ensure that all of your WordPress content goes into a specific folder in your Cloudinary product environment, you can do that. You just have to make sure that you designate which folder it's going to be going into. And also note, if you leave this blank, it will just go into the root of your Cloudinary media library. So it means all the assets will go there, the images, videos, etc., but they would not be attached to any one folder. It's more to the home folder or the root folder, as they're calling it. Also note that there is chances to play with the storage when it comes to this. This means that you can have it where WordPress and Cloudinary are storing both the content pieces. This is helpful because if for some reason the connection is ever disrupted or cut, whether that's accidentally or purposefully, then that ensures that if the WordPress one goes away, the Cloudinary one is still up. Similarly, if the Cloudinary one goes away, then you still have all of your originals in WordPress as well. So that's technically the preference for a lot of the customers that have been using this WordPress plugin. There are a few other options that come to this. This is where you can say, I want to have Cloudinary have the original versions once they're synced. But then what that would do is it would render the ones that are in WordPress into a low resolution version. Now, there are some caveats with that, because this means that if for some reason you disable what's happening with the Cloudinary side of things, then it will happen where only the low resolution versions would exist within the WordPress media library, unless you were to roll it back or re-upload or some other type of mechanism. And also, you can notice that there is a Cloudinary only option, that all the assets are now only stored in Cloudinary. So that way, if you ever did sever the tie between Cloudinary and WordPress, there would be some additional steps to take place for backward compatibility since you have cut the tie. So basically what this means is the best and safest option for most circumstances is to leave it to the default, which is Cloudinary and WordPress that happens to be there. Also notice that everything that we did talk about, from the aspects of the themes, the plugins, the other parts of the optimization that's going to be taking place between WordPress and Cloudinary that isn't tied to the WordPress media library, that all is available in the additional asset syncs settings section. So all of that is going to be right there. Also, last, you'll notice that there is an external asset syncs option. This is going to be particularly helpful if you happen to be pulling content that you need to bring into your WordPress environment and into Cloudinary subsequently that may not be associated with your current WordPress domain. Maybe you have a third-party website, maybe a platform, a piece of software, and you want to make sure that it's grabbing content from there. We can ensure that it's going to grab assets that are associated with those sources and then be synced from there too. Lots of options. But basically what this means is that the default settings are what I'm going to be using for many of my examples. I'm going to ensure that autosync is set up. I'm going to use no folder path, meaning it's just going to go directly into my Cloudinary product environment without it being attached to a specific folder. And I'm going to ensure that Cloudinary and WordPress are both storing the content because of backward compatibility, as well as a fail-safe in case something does happen. Now that we've walked through the syncing situation, and it's good to walk through this yourself before we start investigating the media library or frankly, uploading anything new. The next thing that we want to take a look at here is the asset sync statuses. Now, when we look at the media library, once you are starting to sync with Cloudinary, once again, either automatically or manually, you are going to see some indicators to show if the plugin has been installed properly and is working. If you ever see a green Cloudinary logo associated with any of your images, videos, etc. in the WordPress media library, that means that it's being delivered and it has been properly synced. So that way, when you deliver it, it is going to be delivered with a Cloudinary URL. If you see a recurring sign, so that means that you have the arrows that are going into each other with the yellow, that's indicating that the syncing is taking place. This doesn't mean that your content is now not deliverable or anything along those lines. All that means is that the WordPress version is the one that's being displayed on your website until the sync is finished. And then that will ensure that the Cloudinary version is done once you see it turn to green. If you do see an exclamation point associated with those arrows, what that does mean is that there was a problem with the sync. And if you hover over the message, you'll explain why the error took place. So that way you can start to triage it. Maybe it could be something with file size limits I've seen happen in the past. Maybe it's where you're trying to export something that isn't supported by Cloudinary. There's lots of different options when it comes to this, but it is to say that red doesn't mean it's failed. It just means that there's a problem. And of course, it takes a little bit of investigation to figure out what could have happened. But 9 times out of 10, you'll notice it will be green. So let's go take a look at my media library. So of course, if you're using WordPress, you're probably very familiar with the path to do that. You just go straight to the media section and then go to library. And upon doing so, we should see that all of the content that I have here is showing up as green. And this is showing that it's synced, it's ready to go. And if I go ahead and copy the URL of any of these particular pieces of content that are in my WordPress media library, I'm just going to paste it into a browser. And as you can see, there it is. Now, you're going to notice that this is coming from my Cloudinary account just by inspecting the browser. And you're also going to notice, this is a little bit of a taste of things to come. This is where you'll see that we are applying transformations. These are the ways that we're applying optimization. This is also the way that we're playing with the look and feel of the overall images and videos, thanks to the power of Cloudinary. So lots of wonderful things that are being placed right inside of this URL, but it does show that yes, in fact, it is synced properly with Cloudinary. Now, there are some interesting things that you will find here when we are talking about the delivery here. If you ever did find a certain issue with the sync, you could always hit resync. You could also say, I want to deliver this directly from WordPress. And instead of that syncing taking place, you're going to see this blue symbol, which indicates that that is going to be an item that is being delivered by WordPress and not from Cloudinary. And you can choose whatever you would like. And notice if I do copy the URL from there, and bring it forward, this is the WordPress version of that overall image. Now I can swap as I want to. So if I say I want to sync and deliver from Cloudinary, notice that I'm going to do so. And I'm going to get that yellow symbol that I had just mentioned. And then once it is done, it will turn to green. That will ensure then I can deliver a file from Cloudinary without any issues. This is particularly helpful for a lot of different purposes because you can always see the statuses of everything you're doing within the WordPress system at any given time. And we've shown a few different indicators that happen to be there. But once again, always feel free to reach out to our support team if you see an indicator that doesn't make sense or you need some help with being able to further inspect it, as well as we have lots of details inside our Cloudinary documentation about all the various data symbols you might see in your media library if something is popping up that doesn't look like something we've covered in this course. Now, as an active WordPress user, which is one of the roles that we expect our students to be in when they take this course, it doesn't mean that you're changing the ways that you upload files. You can absolutely still go ahead and take your images and videos and upload those directly into the WordPress media library, and they should sync directly to your Cloudinary account with all of the transformations and everything that's going to be set up for your defaults. It's going to be wonderful. So let's go ahead and run a test and see how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Add New Media File section of WordPress, and I'm going to go select a file of this cute kid who is riding a tractor. Now, when I go ahead and select this, we should see that this is very similar to all of the various WordPress setups that you've done in the past. It's going to go ahead and upload it right into your WordPress media library. If I go check out the library now, I should see, oh, it worked. It's already synced. And if I go ahead and copy that URL, notice it's going to go ahead and put all of the various transformations that I need right into place. So note that your standard path for uploading is going to be exactly the same as it has been if this was the steps that you were taking. Now, one really cool feature is that if you are bringing this plugin into your system, you also are getting advantage of the full Cloudinary Media Library, which is inside of the Cloudinary DAM systems. You might have a DAM system called Cloudinary Nexus. You might have one Cloudinary Assets. Regardless, these are systems that are meant for digital asset management. And this gives you full access to bring that system into WordPress. This is going to be so helpful because then what you can do is you can easily import content from Cloudinary and put it directly into your WordPress media library. So this is going to be a very fun feature to be able to add. And the main way to do that is to go to your Cloudinary plugin and ensure that you are selecting the switch on for this extension called Cloudinary DAM. Once you do that, you should see a new option that appears at the bottom of your Cloudinary plugin in WordPress. And from there, if you select this, this is going to bring over the full Cloudinary media library. And as you can see, everything that we've been talking about is right here. So at this point, what I'm going to now do is I'm going to go ahead and find an image that I have not synced to my media library yet. So I'm going to choose this picture of this dog and owner doing yoga together. And I can see everything inside of here. And I'm going to hit import. Now, once the asset is inserted, we should be able to go back to the media library in WordPress and see, once again, this is going to be uploaded to the system. Now, as you can see, there is a new icon that has appeared here. So what this means is that we are now syncing the asset to local storage. So anytime you're seeing blue, this means that it's only locally stored. As we saw in the earlier example, when I disabled the URL from being delivered from Cloudinary, it was only being delivered via WordPress. This is a similar type of icon that we have here where we're syncing the asset to the local storage. So let's go ahead and see what happens. And sure enough, this is now being able to be delivered via Cloudinary. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the URL. And there we go. Just as we want it. Now, this is just scratching the surface of what's available inside of the Cloudinary DAM system. And that's something that we're going to be covering deeply when we get into the next part of our lessons, because we're going to be covering ways to manage your assets inside of the Cloudinary Media Library. That's one of the wonders of linking these two systems together, because with Cloudinary, you have the ability to do advanced searching. You have collections that you can go ahead and use for sending content out externally, as well as being able to collaborate internally with teams on them. You can also use a lot of ways to be able to better tag and find your files with structured metadata. There's a lot to unpackage here. And of course, we're going to cover all of that in our upcoming lesson. So make sure that you're taking the chance to try to upload your first files to your WordPress media library and seeing how they sync to Cloudinary. And we'll see you at the next lesson once you're successful to better understand all the power of managing your images and videos inside of the Cloudinary Media Library with the Cloudinary DAM extension in your WordPress plugin.